Thank you for tuning in to the Voice of the Victim podcast. We discuss a lot of sad and potentially triggering things on this show. We try to be as sensitive and cautious as possible, but if you are sensitive to things involving abuse and may be triggered, please think twice before listening to our show. There are over 700,000 sexual offenders in the United States alone. With all social media these days, how can we protect ourselves and our children from these despicable predators?
Welcome to the Voice of the Victim podcast, where we share stories of people who experienced horrible things and try to imagine what they went through, as well as look for opportunities that could have made a difference and encourage people to help others that are being abused.
It was around 3:30 p.m. on July 24th, 2018, in Lilburn, a city in Gwinnett County near Atlanta, Georgia. The police received a call from a woman named Devin Moon saying that her 3-year-old daughter Reygan was cold to touch and she believed she was dead. Police responded to the call and went to the house to find the little girl lying on the couch. But the scene told a story that they could never have been prepared for. Welcome to the Voice of the Victim podcast. I'm Rosie.
And I'm Ryan. And it's been a while.
It has.
If you don't follow our Instagram or Facebook, you may have been a bit confused last week when we didn't post a new episode. It's been a crazy couple weeks. I've honestly been having kind of a rough time. I was really sick last week, and then on top of that, had some family drama, big falling out with my dad, and then a close friend of my family got killed in a car accident just a couple days ago, so I'm feeling a bit off today, but you guys have been so sweet and encouraging, and I love making something that you appreciate, so thank you for helping me find the motivation to get back into my normal routine here, and yeah, we're going to get back into it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some new patrons to thank.
Yeah, we want to say a big thank you to our newest patrons, Caitlin, Heather, and Kate.
Thank you, Caitlin, Heather, and Kate. Caitlin and a Kate.
Who would have thunk?
Also, I hear that I get sidetracked a lot while we're telling stories, and that I also repeat a lot of what Rosie has already said. So, I just want to let you know I have a terrible memory, and also when I'm listening to other podcasts, I find myself skipping backwards all the time to re-listen. It could be my ADHD, but anyway, I usually repeat things for emphasis so the meaning and importance of what we're talking about doesn't get lost on people like me that can sometimes lose focus on what we're talking to or listening to. So thank you for putting up with my quirks, and I'll try to wait until after the story to derail it.
That would be good. I also get annoyed when you do that.
Yeah, you've got a much sharper memory than I do.
Thank you.
So this week we're talking about another case from Gwinnett County. And if you're wondering why I'm saying another case, this is the same area where Imani Moss lived. And this story takes place roughly around the same time. Let's just get into it. This week we're talking about Devin and Reygan Moon.
Devin Moon is a 30-year-old single mother from Lilburn, Georgia. She worked as an overnight dancer in a local club. She had a daughter named Reygan who was just 3 years old. But sadly, as we mentioned in the beginning, Devin came home to find her little girl dead. Devin Moon told the police that she had come home from work to find her little girl dead on the couch. She told them that she had to stop hiring babysitters back in November of 2017, but that when she left for work on July 23rd around 8 p.m., Reygan was asleep on the living room couch.
Yeah, so she had become accustomed to leaving Reygan home by herself while she went to work.
Who's under 3 years old.
Yeah. So from November to July, it had been normal for her to leave Reygan home alone.
Which really doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't seem safe at all.
No, it doesn't.
She returned home from work around 4:30 a.m. and went right to bed, assuming that nothing was wrong. She woke up the next day around 2:30 p.m. and noticed that Reygan had not woken up yet, and realized she wasn't responding. That's when she called the police. According to Devin, everything was fine and normal with her daughter up until this point. She said that the little girl ate regularly, and when they asked her what Reygan had eaten the day before, she said that she'd had 2 packets of instant grits and 12-piece chicken nuggets from McDonald's. Okay.
Yeah, super healthy. But the scene that the police found when they showed up was telling them a much different story than what Devin, the mother, was telling them.
I'm already mad at this mom for leaving her kid home.
I know. There
He's
are
under 2.
a lot of red flags.
The police came to the home to find the 3-year-old girl looking very emaciated. They saw that she had little to no muscle or body fat.
Yeah, she literally appeared to be just skin and bones.
The little girl only weighed 14 pounds. But she's a little under 2, and 14 pounds, that's like nothing.
I know.
She should be way over 14 pounds.
Well, she's 3 years old at this point.
Well, still.
Almost.
A healthy 3-year-old would weigh around 30 pounds. So, way down.
Yeah, literally half the weight of what she should be.
The autopsy couldn't determine a time of death because the little girl literally had no muscle mass. They found that there was no food in her stomach, and she died from malnutrition and dehydration.
So obviously the mom was lying about the grits and chicken nuggets because there was no food in the little girl's stomach, and it was apparent there hadn't been for a while. But as we mentioned earlier, the house was actually really well stocked with food, so why the heck would this poor little girl be so starving?
Detective Micah Hedgewood, is it Hedgewood?
I think so.
Believed that based on the evidence and the fact that the house was stocked with food and nice furniture, that it was a willful act and Reygan was intentionally starved.
So when I first looked into this story, I figured it was a struggling single mom, working the night shift because it was her only option, and she probably couldn't afford a sitter or something. Like, she was just so desperate that she had no other choice. Maybe had no family or something. But to learn that there was food in the house, not to mention a large TV and nice furniture they also found, it wasn't that Devin didn't have the means to feed her child. She just didn't care. And to me, it sounds like she just really didn't want to have a kid. And, like, her baby was her inconvenience. And she probably selfishly felt like Reygan was interfering with her personal life and aspirations. So, I mean, when you have food in the house and you just choose not to give it to your kid, like, how does that happen? And as we're about to talk about, this wasn't a recent issue that this family had.
It doesn't compute with me. Like, you do not leave a kid under, like, the age of, like, oh, I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't leave a kid under the age of 9 home alone.
Yeah.
10, maybe for, like, a run to the drugstore.
Yeah.
But, oh my gosh, like, no, you're not a mom if you are able to leave your kid under 3.
Under 3.
Alone for the whole night. That's just insane. It's so weird.
I know. It's definitely a dangerous thing to do. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So, Reygan had actually spent the first 2 years of her life in the custody of her aunt. So she didn't even grow up in her mother's house.
And it's unknown why she wasn't with her mother at this time, but for those 2 years, things seemed to be relatively normal, and Reygan was safe and healthy. But in May of 2017, Reygan went and lived with her mother.
So this was just over a year before Devin would be placing the call to 911 that we talked about in the intro.
A few months later, in September of 2017, her grandmother, Deborah Ann Walton Moon, had been with her and noticed that she was really underweight and appeared malnourished. She was concerned that she wasn't being fed at home, so she brought her to the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta at
Eggleston?
Eggleston Hospital. where the girl spent 4 days because she was so malnourished. She weighed about 20 pounds when she arrived.
So, first of all, 4 days to recover from that, that's insane. But she weighed 20 pounds. This was slightly below what the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention would consider a healthy weight. But over that next year, family members had filed at least 5 complaints with the Department for Child Services. And as we discussed, when she was found a year later, she was only 14 pounds. So this was not an easy year for her.
Right. After this hospital visit, Child Services did begin an investigation, and Deborah fought to get custody of her granddaughter. But Reygan was eventually put back into the custody of her mother. After this incident, Devin completely cut off contact with her family.
And so Reygan lost that support system she had that was trying to save her life because for some reason her mom decided to cut them off.
Because she was upset, I'm sure, at Grandma for doing that.
Upset that she was trying to protect her granddaughter.
Following the return to Devin's custody, the department admitted that it failed to conduct follow-up visits on Reygan to verify her safety. The director of the Department of Child Services said that they relied heavily on the promises Devin Moon made. That's so stupid.
I know.
And that when she cut herself off from the rest of the family, the communications broke down.
Yeah, it's so sad how often we see that child services were involved in a case where the child ended up dead. You know, we saw this with Terrell Peterson, Amani Moss. Is just crazy that they can be on the radar of Child Protective Services and still end up dead.
Oh yeah, I can't believe they said that they were relying heavily on the promises Devin Moon made. I mean, the whole point of Child Services is to be there because the parents already broke the promise of taking care of their children.
Right?
You know, like...
And as we'll talk about later, the things that they used to verify, it was just ridiculous. It just shouldn't happen that way where CPS knows, but the kid still dies.
The director of child welfare actually commented on all this, saying, "We will not allow Reygan's death to be in vain, but we will learn from it." Okay.
Yeah, that sounds like an easy way out.
Deborah replied to this, quote, "Just apologizing, that's one step, but that's still not good enough. They should pay for it."
Again, that's the grandma. And I agree. This happens so often. And I know there are a lot of good people working for child services. And they're greatly outweighed by all the crappy parents out there. And they can't possibly stop all of them. But that makes me think, why isn't this department expanding? You know? I mean, I know the answer. It's because the government doesn't make money off of it. It's not a profitable business, you know, protecting kids.
Right.
So it's not that important to the government and their budget. But come on. Like, you'd think this would be a worthwhile place to put money.
They can't say that they're going to learn from this as if it's the first time it's ever happened. They should have learned from the other times that this has happened.
Right?
It's like...
I know, especially since, like, Imani Mas was just before this. Like, you'd think there would be a lot more focus.
Yeah. The family is considering taking legal action in hopes that they can use whatever funding or support they receive to implement a program to help other families avoid the same situation. Reygan's uncle, Marcus Lampkin, also commented, quote, "I think they ought to be held accountable because we told them on more than one occasion."
Yeah.
So true.
Exactly. And that's the huge issue here. Why we like to talk about cases like this. Because with Terrell Peterson, for example, I know our episode on him wasn't that good because we didn't know what we were doing yet. But his story is still so important. Like, just how could this happen when he's on their radar? And like this uncle said, they told them on more than one occasion, like normally the squeaky wheel gets the grease, or at least it should. Like they couldn't have done a couple follow-up checks because this family was calling in multiple times. And it's not like they call up child services just to kill time and have fun. They had a valid reason to call in. And the department actually released a report detailing the red flags and failures in this case, which I actually...
Good.
I mean, I respect them for doing that, but it doesn't make this okay.
No. The report said that on one occasion, when they received a complaint from the family, that instead of making a house visit and actually investigating it, they just texted Devin about the welfare of the child. And all she had to do was send them a picture as proof.
What do you think about that?
That is, I can't even say it.
How is that official, though? Like, she could have sent them a picture from months before. You know, even if they could check the date on it, she could have just screenshotted an old picture to change the timestamp to a current date. It's not official.
No, it's lazy. It's the definition of lazy.
Unless they made her go get a newspaper for that day and hold it next to her kid.
You know that they didn't do
cannot
that.
be official.
This instance made Deborah feel like they just did not care about Reygan. And I completely agree.
Yeah, it's so hard to see the heartbroken grandmothers in these cases. Like, same thing with Imani Mas's grandma. Trying to imagine the disappointment they have in their daughter and the heartbreak they have over their grandchild. I think it was Pearlie Bashir, the grandma of Imani Mas, going through a similar thing. And she was just so frustrated and so broken up that this would happen. And so there was actually another report that kind of highlights the way Devin, the mother, felt about her daughter.
Yes.
Reygan.
On October 6th, 2017, a caseworker received word from Devin that she felt overwhelmed caring for her daughter, and had even told the caseworker that, at first, she didn't want the child because she'd been conceived as a result of a one-night stand.
So, I mean, that fills us in on exactly how she felt about... What'd you say?
So many thoughts.
Just share them.
Well, it's just like, no, you don't get to... I don't know, like, if you're going to have sex, then you should realize the things that happen when you have sex, so...
Well, yeah.
And if you had the baby, then, wow, then you should really probably take care of your kid and not leave it when you're working.
Right. One night stand or not, it's your responsibility to use birth control if you want to have sex without the natural byproduct of sex, you know? This is a human life, a real child we're talking about.
And if you feel overwhelmed, then I really doubt she had no friends to help her.
Well, that's the thing.
So
her mom, Deborah, wanted custody of Reygan.
Right.
And I'm sure she would have been happy to babysit to keep Reygan safe. Deborah truly loves Reygan, and she would have done anything for her. She's still trying to do things, you know, in retrospect now because she can't save her life anymore, but
feeling real frustrated.
She's still
with
trying
this
to
mom.
get justice.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's my anniversary today.
Anniversary.
Yeah. 6 years.
Aw.
Yep.
Okay, that's what that was, because I thought it was an anniversary for us, and I was like, wow, that's like 3 months
dude,
late.
It's an anniversary.
Okay.
It's my 6-year anniversary.
You started there the same year we got married, so I was
did.
confused.
Super off topic, but my kids gave me a photograph in a frame after we had all made tie-dye shirts together. And it says, "I'm the best nanny ever."
Oh, that's so sweet.
With their names etched in the wood. So I felt pretty good about it.
I would just like to point out that Rosie's the one that derailed this time, so...
I did. But I'm just saying,
Don't
like,
blame me.
I'm not a mom, but I feel pretty darn close, and that's... You just don't leave your kid. You just don't. And if you feel overwhelmed, then you ask somebody you love to help you out.
Right.
So.
And like we just said, the only thing that was keeping what the heck's her name, Devin, from reaching out was her own pride, because obviously, even though she couldn't afford a babysitter and left her child at home, which we'll talk about in a bit, exactly the circumstances Reygan was in when she was left at home, they're terrible.
Can't wait. Can't wait to be super upset.
Yeah. All right, so you ready to move on?
Yeah, I think so.
So later in October, what happened?
I lost my spot. There we go. Found it. I literally was just really upset and I forgot my spot.
That's all right.
Later in October, they had noted in Reagan's file that she was small for her age, but there were no other concerns, even though family members were saying that she was skin and bones and malnourished.
Yeah, like 3 months earlier, she spent 4 days in the hospital because of malnourishment, but they're poo-pooing this as a minor concern?
No, not correct.
Right.
You don't, that's not just a normal thing we do, is bring our kids in for malnourishment for 4 days.
It's almost like they're saying that nourishment's not important for a child. You know, why would they minimize malnutrition like this?
I don't know. Sounds to me like they got a clean house in Atlanta for their child service people.
No kidding.
It was even recorded that her aunt, Demetria Lampkin reported that Reygan was very thin, but her stomach stuck out and she became very bloated every time she ate.
Which is a clear sign that someone is starving. It's a condition known as kwashiorkor.
Okay, so her aunt was saying that as in she knew that that meant she was starving?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Kwashiorkor. I'm not quite sure why it's called that, but it's actually because of a severe protein deficiency and an enlarged liver. So that's why the stomach sticks out on top where the liver is.
And I always think of like those commercials for the charities in third world countries when they show kids like that.
You can see the effects of it in those children.
Right. Now, somehow, with all these complaints and red flags, each report was eventually closed, and no visits were made to the house. Demetria, the aunt, commented, "It was obvious that something was wrong. How can there be concerns, but the case be closed?" Her grandmother, Deborah, added, "We don't know how many babies or toddlers lost their lives to DFAC because no one followed up."
It's just so unfair to them. And it's so heartbreaking to think about what they're going through. I mean, knowing that you tried everything in your power to get child services to do something about this, but you still lost your loved one, has got to be so disheartening.
Apparently, the department had even been ignoring the family's calls. Deborah made one more powerful statement. She said, "We were begging DFCS to let us have the baby, to let us see the baby. It didn't have to come to this." Wow.
Can you imagine getting this news about your granddaughter that you were trying to protect?
I feel like I would have tried to sue child services. I mean,
I know.
There was no reason.
Like, it's easy to get jaded, and like with all these cases we listen to, especially in the true crime community, it's like, oh, it's another sad story. But when you really put yourself in their shoes and think about the loss, and I'm saying this because of what my family experienced this weekend with just the sudden loss of someone that was important in their lives, and then it hits you, and it's like these are real families losing real loved ones, and when they tried so hard to keep her alive, but this still happens, it's such a disgrace. And one of the saddest parts of it to me is something we haven't even shared yet. So do you want to talk about that now?
Okay. This is such a frustrating case.
I know.
Within 2 days of Reagan's death, the apartment where she lived with her mother had been cleaned out and vacated. While Detective Hedgewood searched the vacant apartment, he came across a closet that was filled with empty boxes. Confused about why she'd be stocking empty boxes in a closet, he started to move them and investigate them, and realized that the boxes and the closet itself was full of urine and feces. It's also worth noting that the medical examiner noticed the couch where Reygan laid was not wet, but it would have been if she truly died there.
So, the story that this tells is just awful. I mean, it has so many parallels to other stories we've covered, like Robbie Wayne and, of course, Imani Moss, even Alex Radita, but it's pretty obvious, based on this, that Devin had been keeping her 2-year-old baby girl in this closet and just forcing her to soil herself and starving her. I mean, this is probably where she kept her when she went to work, you know? Probably to try to keep her from messing up the rest of the house, so if she had visitors over for some adult time and didn't want Reygan to get in the way or mess up the house before she had someone over, it's just so selfish.
Yeah, I can't even put into words how I could put them into words, but we can't say them on our podcast, so. Police, I know. Police believe that Reygan had been locked in that closet every night for months, while her mother wasn't even at home, but away at work.
But she apparently had absolutely no respect for the life of her child and no desire to love her daughter. And she really should have put Reygan up for adoption or just let her mom take her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why did Devin fight for the custody and then cut off contact with her family, who could have helped, or better yet, just helped Reygan get out of this house and find a safer, more loving home? Like, even if the family wasn't able to take care of her, there are people out there that can't make their own children for one reason or another that would love to give a girl like this a loving home. I mean, even an orphanage would be better than this. And that's not saying a lot, but I just can't wrap my mind around why a mother would do this to her daughter.
No, and when she said that she was overwhelmed with her kid, I'm just like, why? Why would you be overwhelmed if you're locking them in the closet and that's it?
Right.
Like, what? I don't know. I just want to punch this mom in the neck, to be honest with you. She doesn't even get the title of mom.
Wow. So, yeah. There were also some phone records.
Right. Phone records also told another part of the story. About an hour before she called 911, Devin had been calling the father of her older child over and over, but couldn't get a hold of him. She has another kid?
Apparently. But judging by these calls, it seems like she was pretty frantic.
About 15 minutes before calling 911, she left Reygan at the apartment and drove away for some reason. Then she came back to call 911. Probably to pretend like she had gone to work. That's what I think.
Oh. Well, that's so stupid.
Well, she seems kind of stupid, so.
Yeah. So it seems like she was freaking out here, possibly very well aware that she was in deep crap. Again, reminiscent of Iman and Tiffany Moss, frantically trying to find a solution to the mess they'd made.
But why? Why are they being frantic? You didn't think that your child was going to die if you locked them in a closet without food?
Right.
I mean, what do you think is the outcome here?
Yeah, especially when you have the means to feed your child and you choose not to. Apparently, Devin Moon had been arrested numerous times before because of traffic charges, and among these was a DUI.
But now, Devin is charged with first-degree cruelty to a child and first-degree murder in connection with little Reygan's untimely death.
And we actually have new developments in the Imani Moss case, which was also in Gwinnett County. Her mother, Tiffany Moss, has been sentenced to death.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
She killed her little girl, so why not? And Iman, the father, had been sentenced to life in prison.
So interesting.
As we discussed, he actually pled guilty and took responsibility for what he did, while Tiffany continued to deny any involvement or any responsibility, even though she was the actual murderer, pretty much. But they're actually seeking the death penalty against Devin Moon as well because of this precedent.
Very interesting. The district attorney who prosecuted Imani's case is also working on Reygan's case, and he commented, "We have a case that's almost identical to Imani's case, except there was no father involved." He also commented that he's worked several starvation cases before. He said, "With all my years of experience and everything I have seen, I thought I was pretty knowledgeable or pretty immune to the things people do to each other. But when this case came in, it was like nothing I have ever seen before."
Yeah. And I think those words sum up our reaction while we're covering it right now.
Yeah.
Like, we've covered, we've done 75 episodes leading up to this, and you'd think that by now we'd just be like, oh, it's another story, but we've been, like, so viscerally upset about this, you know?
Yeah. But I still think of Liam Fee when I think of cases like this.
Oh, yeah. That is kind of your pet case, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. My pet.
Was that episode
Super long ago.
8 or
I don't
11
remember.
or something?
I'd like to redo it, actually.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that pretty much wraps up the story.
Very interested to see what happens.
I know. So, Rosie, what do you think of all this? Like,
I don't I don't know.
I guess you've pretty much made your opinion clear throughout
so.
the whole thing.
I think that she's a terrible mother. I think that she shouldn't. I don't know. I don't like to say my opinions about the death sentence, but man, sure don't care if she gets the death sentence.
Well, I know. When you willingly starve your child like this,
When you're able to kill a child, I just don't
yeah.
see the point of keeping you around.
This isn't just like a instant kill, like murder. It's a slow torture of starving a child and neglecting them.
I don't care what you did to a kid if you kill them no matter which way. I'm kind of like,
Well, yeah, but with all the suffering leading up to it, that adds a whole compound.
Locking your child. You don't lock a cat or a dog in a closet, let alone a human being. I just don't. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could be a human yourself and do that to another human or animal or anything. Just wow.
And the closet that was full of feces and
how
urine.
do you not have a conscience and think? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah.
That's why we cover the cases and we aren't being trialed for the cases. So.
Yeah. This also reminds me of Crystal Reyes. I think that was I can't remember the number, but she went through a similar situation, being locked in the cage and just completely neglected. And I don't know why this case is hitting us so much harder. Maybe it's because we took a week off and our numbness went away.
I don't know, but it really made me mad.
I know. Anyway,
I'm getting all the feels.
So let's turn this around to a brighter note. Do we have any cat news?
What?
We do.
We do? Oh yeah, Ryan likes to make music videos. He's made 2 that they're really funny. The first one is a parody from the Jonas Brothers song Sucker. And instead of I'm a sucker for you, it's I'm allergic to you. And it's funny. And then the second one is a parody from Post Malone's Sunflower. That's about our kittens.
Yeah, mainly Burrito.
Our cats being sad when we go on vacation.
Yeah, that's why I thought cat news, cat video.
So where can our listeners find your music videos, Ryan?
YouTube?
And they can look up. Oh, hi, Burrito.
Yeah, Burrito's coming in. It's under Wave Potter on YouTube. It's my 2 most recent videos. So if you think you can handle watching goofy music video that I made without losing respect for me.
They're pretty good. I liked them.
Thank you, Rosie. That means a lot to me because you're hard to impress. So anyway, yeah, they are much happier than what we talk about on this show. I just don't want them to be jarring for anybody that's used to me on here because they're a lot more fun and lighthearted. So anyway, that's about it for that. Oh, we have one more patron to thank because she just got back to us right now. BLT Huey Girl. I don't know if that's her full name.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure it's probably not.
But thank you.
Thank you. You've given us a lot of love today.
Another new patron.
We
Oh, yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for all your comments over on Patreon.
I haven't responded to one, but I looked during work.
Also want to say thank you to everyone that commented on our posts when we said we were sick and taking a week off.
No, people were so nice to
It
us.
was really sweet.
Yeah, life hasn't gotten any easier since last week.
Yeah,
with
I was
being
hoping
busy,
that.
But
Hoping it would, but one more thing I want to mention is that we don't mean any disrespect to the people that are working in child services. You know, obviously we know that not everyone in the Gwinnett County Child Services is not doing their job right. That's not what we're saying at all. So we don't want that to come across in the wrong way. It's just really unfortunate.
super unfortunate.
But, okay, well, I know it's a shorter episode this week, but thank you for listening.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else that we need to say, but I can't really think of anything. I'm thinking about making my own business about my my love trees.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna throw that in there. To
My
see what people
niece
would
got
say.
married this past weekend, and Rosie made her a love. Well, she calls it a love tree.
I call it a
it's
love
a
tree.
guest book.
On a canvas. It's a tree, and then you stamp your name and you sign it instead of the traditional guest book. It's a canvas, so I don't know. It's kind of cool. But I've made
I thought
one
it was
before,
cool.
and I'm trying to think about making an Etsy store for them and my art in general. But we'll see how that goes. If anybody's getting married, let me know.
It sounds really cool.
I'd love to show you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate you. Do you want to do the plugs?
You can check out our store at vov-threadless-.com.
Yes. Links in the description or the show notes. We're also on Instagram at VOV Podcast, Twitter at VOV Pod.
Or email us at vovpodcast@gmail.com.
You got that right. Okay. Cool. And also you can go join our group over on Facebook, Voice of the Victim Support System, or just our page over there. It's a fun time.
It's a good time.
So thank you again for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.